Odile Rancourt tore the service jacket off the cook and shook it out over the terrace stones in front of 300 wedding guests. A pen fell. A folded order slip. A roll of blue tape. "Turn the pockets," Odile said. Vera Balog turned them. She was 33 plus size 11th on a line of 12 cooks, working the hot section in a kitchen that had been running at 40 degrees since 6 that morning, and until 90 seconds ago nobody at that wedding had known. There was an 11th. Her hands still shone with duck fat. The sun came off the white stone hard enough to hurt. "The staff do not come out of the kitchen," Odile said, and she said it to the guests, not to her. That is the whole arrangement. Give a person a doorway and she decides she was invited through it. 300 people watched. 2 phones went up. A man near the fountain laughed once, and then stopped laughing because nobody else had joined him. Vera did not answer. She looked past Odile at the pastry table where 4 trays of chocolate work had been standing in direct sun for 11 minutes. "Those trays need to come in," she said. "They will be soup in 5 minutes, and the woman who made them is 70. Odile lifted her hand, and 2 men in dark suits came up the steps and took Vera by the arms. "Walk her out the long way," Odile said. They got 4 paces. Then a hand closed around the wrist of the man on the left, and it did not squeeze, and it did not twist. It simply stopped, and the man stopped with it. "Let go of her." The men looked at Odile because the men were hers. "She is staff," Vartan, Odile said. "This is a family matter." "Then I will make it one." He said the next part without raising his voice at all, and the terrace heard every word of it. And afterward not one of the 300 could agree on how loud it had been. "I am marrying her." Nobody in that garden was thinking about the woman with the torn jacket. They were thinking about the fact that in 43 years Vartan Kasabian had never once said a thing out loud that he did not then do. The string quartet had stopped mid-bar. The cellist sat with his bow lifted and did not put it down for a long time. Vartan Kasabian. 43. Nobody in the city used the word for what he was in the same way nobody used the word for weather. 4 families had been at war for 11 months, and then they had not been. And the reason was standing on a terrace in a grey morning coat, with his hand around a stranger's wrist. The 2 men had already let go. Neither of them could have said when. He took off his coat and put it around Vera's shoulders. It went round her easily because it was his, and he was a large man, and he did not adjust it afterward, or look at how it sat. "The fish course is on the pass," Vera said. "It will not hold in this sun." "I know. Then someone should take it off." "Someone will." He turned his head half an inch. "What is your name?" "Nobody needs my name for this." "I do." She did not give it to him. Not then. He looked at the terrace instead. "Who sent for her?" Nobody spoke. A gull went over the fountain. I asked who sent for her. The estate's banqueting manager had been standing behind the ice sculpture for the whole of it. He came out now with his hands at his sides. "I did, sir. I was told to." By Miss Rancourt. She said there had been a theft from the bridal rooms, and she wanted the girl brought out where people could see. "Was there a theft?" "No, sir." "How long have you known there was no theft?" "Since about 11 this morning." "Thank you." They spoke because they were asked, and because the answer was already standing on the stones with its pockets turned out. Not because any of them had suddenly discovered courage, because in front of that man a lie had a shorter life than the truth did. Gilles Rancourt came up the steps, then 66 years old, a man with his own money, and his own men, and his own name, over 4 warehouses on the North Dock. When Vartan looked at him, Gilles stood up straighter, and he had already been standing. Afterward in the car, Gilles could not have explained why he did that. "The ceremony will not continue," Vartan said to the terrace. "I apologize to the people who traveled. A wedding is a promise made out loud in front of witnesses. One has been made this afternoon. I would like the rest of the day to be quiet." Then he walked into the kitchen, which no guest at that wedding had done in the 11 years the estate had been hiring itself out, and he found the fish course sitting under the heat lamps going grey. "Which of these is hers?" he said. The head chef pointed at the second station. "Then finish the rest and leave that one," Vartan said. "It is hers to finish." The kitchen did not move. 12 people in white jackets stood in a room with the extraction roaring, and nobody put a hand on a pan. Vera came in through the service door, in a coat that cost more than the van she had arrived in. She put it on a hook. She tied a clean apron. She went to the second station and finished the fish course, and it went out 14 minutes late, to 300 people who had entirely lost interest in eating it. He watched her from the doorway for the whole 14 minutes, and did not say one word. That night in a corridor with the ovens ticking as they cooled, he told her what he had done flatly, the way a man reads out a delivery note. I said it in front of 300 people and 2 of them film everything. By tomorrow morning it is either true or it is a story about a cook who was worth a scene. If it is a story, you will not be able to get work in this city, and the Rancourts will not have to do anything at all to make sure of it. And if it is true, then nobody in this city touches you. Not for anything. Not ever. Vera looked at the cooling ovens for a while. You do not know me. No. You are not asking me to be your wife. You are asking me to be a fact. Yes. All right, she said. Then it is a fact. The registrar came to the house at 8:09 on a Saturday evening. Registrars do not do that. This one carried his own book, apologized twice for the hour, and did not once ask why. It was done in 11 minutes. Vartan Kasabian, 71, stood as the witness in the shoes she had put on that morning for a different wedding. On the Tuesday, a lawyer brought a folder to the kitchen door and gave it to Vera himself. Annulment papers drawn and ready, needing one signature. He would like you to have them, the lawyer said. He says the point is that you can go on any day you choose. Vera folded them twice and put them in her apron pocket. They stayed in that pocket for a year. The house had a kitchen that had not properly cooked in 9 years. She asked for it. He said she did not have to work. I know, she said. That is why I would like to. So she cooked at 1 in the afternoon in a hot room with the yard door open, and 4 other people in white jackets. And within a fortnight there were 11 people eating lunch in that house every day who had never eaten there before. He learned things without being told. He learned that she did not sit down once between 11 and 3. He learned that at the end of every service she ate, standing at the end of the pass from a plate she never put on a table, cold in about 90 seconds. On the Thursday of the 2nd week, a small table appeared in the yard under the fig tree with 1 chair, a wide-seated chair with no arms on it. Nobody announced it. Nobody said anything about it at all. She found it, looked at it for a moment, and then sat down in it with a plate and ate a hot meal, sitting down for the first time in 6 years. He never once mentioned the chair. She never once thanked him for it. The kitchen learned her fast. On the 9th day, a delivery arrived at the yard gate, and a boy came in holding a docket with an expression of real fear. Chef, there are 90 pineapples. Ninette. 92. Vera wiped her hands. Somebody at that firm has typed a 9 where they wanted a 0, and now they are hoping we do not notice. Write back and ask them what we did to them. The whole kitchen laughed, including the boy, including the porter, who had not laughed at anything since his wife left in March, and Vera did not laugh because she was already on to the next thing. Vartan heard it from the corridor. He stood still for a moment and then went on to his meeting. She covered for a 19-year-old the following week when a beurre blanc split at the worst possible moment and went out anyway to 4 people who mattered. The head chef came looking for the person responsible. Vera said it was her pan, her heat, her fault, and took the reprimand standing, and the 19-year-old cried in the walk-in for 10 minutes and then came out and worked the hardest shift of his life. She never mentioned it to anybody. On the Friday, he came through the kitchen on his way to the North Dock, and his collar had folded under at the back, and she reached up and turned it down without breaking off what she was saying about the fish order. They will send turbot again. They send turbot every time I write brill, because turbot is dearer. Then write turbot and see if they send brill. That is a terrible idea, and I am going to try it. Neither of them stopped. Neither of them said anything about it. Everyone in that kitchen saw it, and everyone in that kitchen looked away at the same instant. He came back at 9 that evening and did not go to his study. He stood in the yard doorway while she scaled down the pass. You have a fig tree that has never given a fig. It gives leaves. That is not the arrangement with a fig tree. Nobody has told the tree. I will tell it. It has been told. My mother told it for 11 years, in 2 languages. Then it is not a listening problem. No, he said, it is a fig problem. She laughed at that once with a cloth in her hand, and he looked at the fig tree for a while afterward and did not say anything else. Odile came to the house 11 days later for her things. She was in the hall for 4 minutes. On her way out, she stopped where Vera was carrying a crate of lemons. I heard you cook. Yes. How long do you imagine this lasts? Vera moved the crate to her other hip. Long enough for the lemons, she said. Odile went out to the car. She did not look back at the house, and she did not look back at the kitchen either, and there was one thing she did not do that a woman collecting her dresses would have done, and Vartan noticed it that night and could not name it for. Another 6 weeks. He had spent 20 years reading people in under a minute. He read a man's shoes and knew what he owed. He read a pause and knew what it cost. He had been reading this woman for a month and had come up with nothing at all except the same question every night in the same words. How does a person get treated like that and lose none of it? The property lot on the north side had been bought as 4 buildings and a yard, and Vartan went to look at it because a lawyer wanted a signature on a demolition schedule, and he did not sign things he had not stood inside. 3 of the buildings were warehousing. The 4th had a municipal seal on the door 6 years old, the paper gone the color of weak tea. Inside it was a laboratory. Nobody had stripped it. There had been an argument about who owned the contents, and the argument had outlasted everybody's interest in it, so the benches were still there, and the fume cupboards and a rack of glassware with 6 years of dust standing on the shoulders of every bottle. A wall clock had stopped at 4:20. On the far wall there was a whiteboard, and on the whiteboard there was a table drawn in 3 colors, and it had not been wiped. Reference blocks. A column of 4-letter prefixes down the left. A column of years down the right. Rules underneath in small, upright, entirely legible handwriting. Which prefix belonged to which year? Which prefix had been retired, and why? A note at the bottom underlined twice about never reissuing a retired block for any reason whatsoever, and a second note about what to do if somebody asked you to. By the door there was a register with a pen still tied to it. He turned it round with one finger and read the last page. The last 12 entries were all the same signature. The final one had a date 6 years old and a time of 4:20. He walked the room slowly. There was a coat hook with a strip of tape on it and a name written on the tape. There was a drawer that held an accreditation certificate lying face down, and he did not turn it over because he had already read the name 3 times and it had not changed. The lawyer telephoned that evening about the demolition schedule. "Take it off the list," Vartan said. "It is the cheapest building on the site. Take it off the list." He came back to the house at 8 and went to the kitchen, instead of the study which he had now done every day for 5 weeks, and Kerem Aydin was in the doorway with a case of Sancerre on his shoulder and saw the whole of it. "There is a building on the north side," Vartan said. 4 rooms. A yard with a locked gate. It has been sealed since a Tuesday in October 6 years ago. Vera stopped with a tray in her hands. "Would you like it?" he said. He did not say it the way he said anything else. He said it the way a person offers a coat to somebody who has said twice that they are not cold. "No," Vera said. "All right. I would like it not to be knocked down." "It is not going to be knocked down." "Then that is what I would like." Kerem carried the Sancerre downstairs and stood in the cellar for a while with the case still on his shoulder. 9 years I have worked in this house, he said to nobody. He has never once asked me a question he did not already know the answer to. On the Wednesday, Kerem mentioned because it was on the staff board, and there was nothing in it that the chef had asked for Thursday evening off. "She is meeting somebody she used to work with," Kerem said. "A man from the old place. He has been trying to find her for 4 years, apparently." Vartan said fine. He did not ask who. He did not ask where. He did not ask what old place, although he now knew exactly which building it was, and had walked its floor 2 days earlier with his hand on a whiteboard. He went to the window and stood there. He stood there long enough that Kerem finished the wine list, put it in the drawer, took his jacket, said goodnight twice, and got no answer either time. On Thursday evening, Vera came in at 10:30, hung up her coat, looked in on the stock pots, and went upstairs. He was in the study with the lamp on and the door open, which was not where he worked and not how he worked. He did not ask her about her evening. He sat there for another hour, and at the end of it he decided to ask the only person left alive who might know, and who had already made it perfectly clear that she was not going to tell him. Vartan Kasabian took her tea at 6 in the morning in the small east room, and she had done it in that room since before he could walk. "I would like to ask you something." "No," his mother said. "You have not heard it. I have watched you decide to ask it for 4 days. You are going to ask me what happened to that girl 6 years ago." She put her cup down. "Ask her. She will not say." "She will. You have not asked. You have been walking round the outside of it like a man checking a building for a way in that does not involve knocking. I did not want to make her account for herself." "Vartan." Anahid looked at him over the top of her glasses and did not take them off. "I found the papers in her apron when the laundry came up. The ones your lawyer brought her on the 3rd day. She has been carrying them since April. They are for her protection. They are for yours. She let that sit exactly as long as it needed to sit." You gave that woman a door out of the room before you gave her a chair in it. Do not tell me it was kindness. I raised you. I know what your kindness looks like when it is frightened." He did not answer. "Ask her," his mother said. "Like a person, not like a man reading a file." So he asked her that night in the yard under a fig tree that had never given a fig. And Vera told him the first part of it herself in her own words, without one letter of it coming from anybody else. "I was a public analyst. That is a job most people have never heard of. When a certificate says what is in a bottle, somebody has to sign the bottom of it, and the signature is the only part of the page with any weight. For 11 years, the signature was mine. 11 years. I ran provenance and adulteration for the city. Olive oil, spirits, honey, saffron, everything people lie about. I spent 11 years finding out how they were lying about it that particular year. And then I was asked to sign a certificate for a consignment, and I would not sign it because it was not true. What happened? They sued me," she said. "Not the city. Me, personally. Defamation, malicious falsehood, 4 other things. I had a solicitor for 11 months. And then I had a barrister for 9 days, and by the end of it there was nothing in the account and no account. Did you lose? I did not lose. It's settled. Everybody signed something and everybody agreed to say nothing, and the terms of saying nothing were that I could not explain to anybody ever why I had not signed." She was quiet for a second. "Do you know what happens to an analyst who cannot explain herself? Nothing dramatic. Nobody puts anything in the paper. Your registration comes up for renewal and there is a fee, and the fee is not enormous. And you look at it for a fortnight and you do not pay it. And then it is gone. And the gone part is very quick. 6 years. 6 years. And nobody in the trade would speak for you. 2 would, she said. Both of them retired. 1 is dead now." He asked her the question anybody would ask. "Why did you never tell people who you were?" "Because if a man only takes my word when there are letters after my name," Vera said, "he was never taking my word." That night he pulled her file, the one the house held on everyone who worked in it. Temporary catering agency. 6 years of kitchens. No sick days. No complaints. 2 commendations she had never mentioned, both from restaurants she had left. Nothing about 11 years. Nothing about a laboratory. Nothing about the name on a whiteboard in a sealed building he now owned. She had taken herself out of her own history with both hands, not because she was ashamed of any part of it, because she had decided that anything given to her again was going to be given to Vera and not to a signature. The next morning, he watched her carry 40 kilos of ice across a wet yard with a 70-year-old porter who should not have been carrying any of it, and ruin a clean jacket in under 10 minutes, and never once look up to see whether anybody had noticed. He stopped calling it admiration somewhere around the 3rd crate. There was a more accurate word, and he had been avoiding it for 5 weeks. Odile Rancourt could not come back into that house, so she went round it. She had lunch with the right 4 people in the right 11 days. She never accused Vera of anything. She was warm about her. That was the whole method. She is a marvelous cook, apparently. Honestly. Do you know she was working that terrace for 9 years? 9 years in kitchens, and then 1 Saturday. Nobody agreed with her out loud. Nobody had to. Silence carries a thing further than agreement does, because agreement can be traced and silence cannot. By the 2nd week, the city had 4 versions, and all of them were better than the truth. Perhaps she had known whose wedding it was. Perhaps she had asked to work that day. Perhaps a woman who lets a man ruin a 40-year arrangement in the middle of his own ceremony has thought about it beforehand. Perhaps that is why she has never once asked him for anything, because a woman who asks for nothing is a woman who has already been given the house. It reached the trade before it reached the kitchen. A fish merchant who had supplied her for 2 years stopped being able to source anything. The agency that had placed her for 6 years wrote to say they were restructuring their books. A woman she had trained with and liked took 11 days to answer a message, and then answered it in 4 words. Vartan heard it at a funeral. It was raining, and there were 80 people at the graveside, and a man, his father's age, took his arm on the way back to the cars. A man who had buried 2 sons. A man who had stood in a church and held Vartan when he was 9 days old. They are saying a thing about you in 4 houses. I know what they are saying. Then you know it is not being said as an insult. It is being said as a diagnosis. The rain came off the yew hedge in a sheet. Nobody near them lit a cigarette. You made it simple for them, the old man said. A treaty on Saturday morning and a cook by Saturday afternoon. They will forgive a man for being hard. They cannot forgive a man for being sentimental because sentiment is the only thing on the table they are not able to price. There was no version of the question he usually asked. He could not ask this man who was saying it because this man was the reason it was worth hearing. What would you have me do? Say something. Anything. A lie would do. And if I say nothing, then in a year they will decide you have gone soft. And men decide that a long time before they act on it. And by the time you find out it happened 18 months ago. Vartan watched them lower the ropes. Is she worth 40 years of arrangement? I do not know yet, Vartan said. I know she is worth the 18 months. The old man laughed once into the rain. Then he stopped laughing. Your father would have had an answer by now, he said. It would have been a lie and it would have worked and he would have slept fine. Vartan said nothing to that. He said nothing on the drive back either. He told her none of it, not that night and not ever. 2 days later, she told him the second part without his asking. They were in the yard. She had a bowl of broad beans, and she was podding them at the small table because she podded things when she was thinking. It was a Tuesday, she said. In October. 400 cases of oil came in through the North Dock, and the paperwork said one thing and the oil said another. Not a small gap. It was not oil. It was oil the way a photograph of a fire is warm. What did you do? I ran it 3 times. Then I ran it a 4th time because I did not want to be the person who was wrong about 400 cases. She split a pod. It was worse the 4th time, so I did not sign. And they came to you. They came to me twice. The first time a man came to the laboratory and he was very reasonable and he had a figure. The second time a letter came from a firm with 6 names on the top of it. Which family? Vera looked at the beans in the bowl. That is the part I signed a document about, she said. He did not push it. He got up and took the empty pods away in his 2 hands like a man clearing a table in a house where he was staying, and she watched him do it, and said nothing about that either. Then something in her went quiet. It was not a scene. There was no day it started. She was pleasant. She was early. The food went out on time and it was better than it had been in May. And she answered when she was spoken to and something behind all of it had gone flat, like a room with the radio off. Anahid saw it first because Anahid was 71 and had spent a life watching women decide not to be a problem. Your wife has stopped talking to the porters, she told him. She says good morning. She used to ask about the knee. She is busy. She is not busy. She is being careful. Go and look at her. He went down at 3:30 at the flat hour when a kitchen is at its emptiest. Vera was standing at the dry store with a clipboard counting a shelf. He watched her count it. Then she wrote nothing down and counted it again. Then she counted it a 3rd time and her mouth moved with it. And the 3rd number was the same as the first 2. Vera. She turned round with the clipboard held against her. Tinned tomato, she said. 41. You have counted it 3 times. Yes. Why? And it came out of her in the flattest voice he had ever heard her use, without one tear in it anywhere, which was worse. Because for 11 years my name at the bottom of a page was the reason a thing was true. This morning I signed for 2 crates of lemons and the boy did not look at the page. He looked at the lemons. She breathed out. I have been useful every single day for 6 years. Useful and needed are not the same thing, and I have been telling myself they were, and this week I stopped believing it and I cannot get it back. He did not move toward her, and he did not go. There is nothing wrong with me, she said. I am tired in a way that sleeping does not touch. Then she looked at the shelf and at the clipboard, and she wrote 41 on it in her small upright hand and put the pen in her pocket. The stock will catch, she said. I am sorry. That was not for you. She went back to the stove. He let her go, and he did not follow her, and neither of them ever mentioned it again. She was the same by Friday. A tray of glasses went over in the yard, and she looked at the mess for 2 seconds and said that at least the gravel had been thirsty, and the kitchen laughed, and she was already sweeping. That afternoon she caught him looking at her from the yard doorway. It was not the way he had looked at her on the terrace in April with his hand still around another man's wrist. She looked away first, and then got almost nothing done for the rest of the day, and was extremely annoyed about it. On the Sunday, the car waited 40 minutes at the north gate for a lorry to reverse out. They sat in the back of it with the rain going down the glass. Neither of them said anything. Neither of them suggested walking. Anahid watched all of it from the east window with her tea going cold. They have spent 3 weeks telling this city she planned it, she said. The trouble with those people is that they have never in their lives met anybody who simply meant it, so they have nowhere to put her. The regulator held 400 cases at the North Dock on a Monday morning and asked the importing company to account for them by Thursday. On the Wednesday night, Vartan brought one page home and put it on the kitchen table. "You are the only person I have ever met who has read one of these," he said. "Tell me if it is a certificate." She read it standing up with a cloth still over her shoulder. Then she sat down. Then she asked for the other 39. She did not go to bed. At 6 in the morning, she was at the table with all 40 pages laid out in 4 rows and her hand flat on the 3rd row. "I would like to be in the room," she said. The boardroom at the import house had 11 chairs, and they used 9. Gilles Rancourt, Odile, the company's lawyer. Kerem Aydin, who had asked to be there and had not said why. 2 men from the regulator. Vera at the end in a coat with a box file. "Begin," Vartan said. Kerem went first because he had been carrying it the longest. He put a wooden case on the table and turned it so the end grain faced the room. Then he cut the foil off 2 bottles and laid the capsules side by side. "Same case," he said. 2 lot codes. "And this foil is from a plant in Alba that shut 4 years ago on bottles filled last spring." "How long have you known?" Vartan said. 3 years. "Say the rest of it." "I have a wife and a boy at school and I liked being paid." Kerem looked at the table. "I moved the cases to the back of the rack so I would not have to see them. That is what I did about it. For 3 years. Nobody in that room breathed out. The lawyer had stopped writing and had not put the pen down. "You were afraid," Vartan said. "Yes. Fear is a reason. It is not a receipt." He nodded once at the case. "You will pay this back in work, and you will start by opening every rack in that cellar to these 2 gentlemen this afternoon." Then Vera stood up. "The certificates are the problem," she said. "Not the bottles. Anybody can fill a bottle. The certificate is what makes it worth money. They are signed by an accredited analyst," the lawyer said. "We had them checked." "You had the signature checked." "Nobody checked the paper." She asked for a jug of hot water, a clean glass, and a watch. It took 4 minutes to find a watch in that building because everybody used a telephone. She poured and covered the glass with her hand and counted, and took her hand off it, and put the glass in front of the older man from the regulator without a word. He smelled it. He did not say anything for a moment. "This certificate says a sensory reference panel was run at 28 degrees on the 14th of February, Vera said. "That is the test I have just run in front of you with a jug and a watch. The value on the page is not a value that sample can produce. Not at 28 degrees. Not at any temperature. Somebody wrote down what the buyer wanted to read. That is your opinion," Odile said. "Yes. Here is the part that is not." She turned the 40 pages face up and pushed them into the middle of the table in 4 rows. "Every one of these has a reference number, and every reference number starts with a 4-letter block. All 40 of these start with the same block. That block was retired 11 years ago after a laboratory in the East lost a set of samples. It was retired permanently. It is never reissued." "How would you know that?" the lawyer said. "Because I wrote the rule," Vera said. "It is on a whiteboard in a sealed building on the north side in my handwriting, and it has been there for 6 years and I underlined it twice." Nobody at that table moved. Somewhere below them a forklift ran and stopped. The lawyer opened the second file then because the money had been waiting for its turn. 11 payments over 4 years to a laboratory that had been dissolved in the spring of the 2nd year, which is a difficult thing for a laboratory to be doing. And after the dissolution, the same 11 payments, same amount, same day of the month to a private account in a private name. He read the name out. "That is my account," Odile said. "That proves nothing except that I paid for testing." "You paid for testing to a laboratory that did not exist," Vartan said. "Show the last thing." The footage was from a fixed camera above the loading bay of the North Warehouse, and there was no sound on it, and no one had edited it, and it ran for 11 minutes. 2 men moved a pallet under the light. They cut the wrapping. They took the labels off 11 cases and put different labels on, and they were not quick about it, and one of them stopped halfway through to answer his telephone. Odile Rancourt was standing 4 meters away for the whole 11 minutes. When the men left, the camera kept running, and that is the part that did the damage. She did not leave with them. She went along the pallet and put her hand on each of the 11 cases in turn and checked that every label was straight. It took her 4 minutes. There was nobody there to see her do it. The screen went back to gray. The merger completed at the end of that month, Vartan said. On the 1st of April, every one of those consignments would have come in under my name with my signature on the group return. Not hers. Mine. He let that sit. That is not spite. That is a place to put 4 years of it where I would have had to carry it. He turned to Odile. And you knew who she was on the terrace. You saw a cook on the hot line in a kitchen you had walked through 9 times, and you recognized her, and you had 90 seconds to get her out of that building before anybody put 2 names together. So you tore her jacket off in front of 300 people. That was not cruelty. That was housekeeping. Odile did not deny it. She did something better. 6 years ago you signed the same page I did, she said. The group indemnity. You just did not read it. No, Vartan said. I did not read it. That is mine to carry, and I will. It does not make the page true. He put 1 sheet in front of the men from the regulator and signed it, and there was nothing loud about it at all. 400 cases surrendered. Every line under the Rancourt provenance withdrawn from sale in 11 countries. The house license referred to the trade board. Gilles resigned from his own company before lunch, and his own board accepted it before 2. The last thing Vartan said in that room, he said to the whole table. You did not ruin her because she was in your rooms. You ruined her because she was the only person in that building who could read your handwriting. Nobody clapped. Nobody ever does. It sounded like a chair being pushed in. The room emptied. He stayed. The telephone on the sideboard was a house line with no ringtone, and 4 people alive had the number, and the voice on it did not give a name. There is a man on the North Dock who is finished by Thursday and knows it, the voice said. Would you like this taken off your hands? No. It would be quiet. No. Vartan looked at the grey screen. For 6 years she was told her word was worth nothing by people who never once had to say it out loud. If I finish it in the dark, then they were right, and she will never be able to prove they were not. The line went dead without any goodbye because that is how that line works. Afterward, in the corridor, the older man from the regulator explained the difficulty to her kindly. The figures were sound, but a finding has to be signed by a registered analyst, and hers had lapsed 6 years ago, and without a signature, the 40 pages were 40 opinions. Vera took the pen out of her apron pocket. She wrote her name at the bottom of the analysis. Then she wrote 3 lines under it in the same small upright hand, stating that she held no current registration, that the finding therefore carried no legal weight whatsoever, and that every figure on it could be reproduced by any competent to laboratory in under a day. And she invited them to. You told a terrace that nobody needed your name, Vartan said. They did not. Not for a fish course. She capped the pen. The next page, like this one, goes to somebody with no house to live in and nobody standing in the doorway. If my name is not on it, they will be told exactly what I was told, which is that nothing they say counts unless somebody agrees to let it. She put the pen away. That is all it is. It is not revenge. Revenge would be much quicker, and I have never been quick. The import house changed in about 9 days, and not in the way people expected. It was not quieter. It was louder. The men on the loading floor started saying good morning to the office, and the office started saying it back. Kerem Aydin came in on both his days off and opened racks for the regulator until every bottle in that cellar had a number that meant something, and nobody thanked him for it, and he did not expect anybody to. Vera was asked to come up to the 3rd floor on a Tuesday. She spent the 2 hours before it working out which things she had done wrong and got as far as a list of 4. His office had books and 3 maps and 1 chair that did not match the others. Nothing in it was there to be looked at. He gave her a folder. Head of provenance. Every line the company imported, every certificate it accepted, with the authority to stop a consignment on the dock without asking anybody. She closed the folder before she had finished the first page. You are married to me for another 11 weeks, she said. You cannot hand me a department in the 11 weeks. I am not handing it to you. The post has been empty since March, and it is the reason 400 cases got past this building. That is not the part I am arguing with. Then say the part. If you give me this, Vera said, then everything I do in it for the rest of my life gets explained by a terrace in April. Every good thing I ever do again arrives with your name already on it. He was quiet for a moment. What would you accept? Send it to the trade panel. 4 names. Mine 4th. No letter from you, no note, nothing that says where the 4th name came from, and if they pick somebody else, you take somebody else. She held his eye. And nobody in this building is ever told that you offered it to me first. Not in 10 years, not at your funeral. That will cost me the appointment. They will pick the man from the north. Then they will pick the man from the north. He looked at her for a long time and then he laughed, which had not happened in that office in a number of years that people in the building could quote at you. Fourth, he said. You put yourself fourth. Alphabetical, Vera said. It is not modesty. It is balaw. He sent it that afternoon with 4 names on it and no letter. She told him the last part of it that evening in the yard, with the fig tree doing nothing above them. There is something I never said. When the registration came up for renewal, I had the fee. It was not a lot. I had it in an envelope in the kitchen drawer for 5 weeks and I looked at it every day and I did not pay it. She turned the envelope of that memory over once. Everybody thinks it was taken from me. It was not. On the last morning, I decided that if my own trade would not stand behind me for 11 months, I would not stand in it. And then I spent 6 years being angry at people for a door I shut myself. Why are you telling me that? Because you would have found it in a file eventually and thought better of me than I deserved. Can it be reopened? There is an appeal. It takes 4 months and 2 referees and a fee I now have. She stood up and took the plates. I will be doing that myself. If your name goes anywhere near it, I will withdraw it. I know, he said. Yes, she said. You do. That is the annoying part. The panel took 9 weeks. They interviewed all 4 and they argued for 2 days, not because anybody had leaned on them, because 2 of them could not agree about the man from the north. They gave it to the 4th name. Nearly a year later, the trade board held its annual dinner on the terrace of an estate that had changed hands in the winter, and 300 people ate outside on the white stones in the last of the evening. Vera below went through that kitchen at 4:30 in the afternoon, because she still went through kitchens, and the head chef there was the 19-year-old whose beurre blanc had split in May. She stopped by the pass to check a tray and saw herself in the steel in a good jacket, with her hair coming down on one side. She pushed the hair back and moved on. She did not look for anything else. She had not looked for anything else in years, not because she had won some argument with a mirror, because she had been too busy for that particular habit and had never picked it up again. At 9, the chairman of the trade board stood up with a single sheet of paper. He said the Register of Public Analysts had 4 new signatories that year, which was 2 more than the year before, and he read the 4 names out in the order they appeared on the page. He got to the second one and the terrace stood up. Not all at once. A fish merchant near the fountain went first, and then his whole table, and then the far end where the dockmen were sitting, and then everybody, and it went on long enough to be uncomfortable, and Vera stood by the kitchen door with a tray, still in her hands, because she had genuinely not understood at first that it was for her. The applause was not for a woman a powerful man had married on a terrace. It was for a signature 400 cases of oil had not been able to buy. She went back to the kitchen at 10:30 and the caterers were stacking chairs in the yard and somebody was hosing the stones down. He was standing by the fig tree. There are figs, he said. There were. 11 of them, small and hard and green and entirely inedible, on a tree that had not carried in 12 years. Vera looked up into the leaves for a while. Then she took the folded papers out of her apron pocket, because they had been in every apron she had owned for a year, and the folds had gone soft as cloth. Your lawyer will want these back eventually, she said. They are older than the fig tree's opinion of me. He did not take them. I said 4 words on that terrace. He said to 300 people about you without asking you. You have never once made me pay for that, and you should have. It saved my life. It did. And I have never asked you. He put his hands in his pockets, which was the only nervous thing anybody in that city had ever seen him do. So I am asking. Not for a room, not for a family, not because anybody is at the gate. Vera, will you marry me? She did not answer him. She folded the papers once more and put them back in the apron pocket and untied the apron and hung it on the hook by the door where it went every night. Then she put her hand out. He took it, and neither of them said anything else at all. And at the terrace doors she stopped him and kissed him once, and then they walked out across the white stones together, past the tables and the stacked chairs and the fountain, and neither of them was in any hurry. The estate kept its terrace and lost the name that built it. Girls in white jackets crossed those stones at 1 in the afternoon, now unhurried, and nobody sent for anybody. Not because a dangerous man had once said 4 words there in front of 300 people, because a woman told for 6 years that her word was worth nothing had written her name at the bottom of a page and invited the world to check it. Under the fig tree on a small table with 1 wide chair, somebody had left a bowl of 11 green figs.